In 1969, 13,000 people attempted the IIT entrance exam. By 2011, that number had reached almost 5 lakhs. Less than 3% of them, only around 10,000 students, would get admission. It's amazing that there are 5 lakh people writing one exam, but it's even more amazing that we as a country accept the fact that the right 3% of them are picked, that only the best students are chosen to join IIT. Which is why when reservations are introduced into IIT admissions, there's always this huge outcry. Why are you undermining the system that works so well? I mean, that's a good question. If the most meritorious candidates are already being chosen, why should we change anything? Today, most unreserved seats in IITs go to upper caste men. It's just a fact, even though technically everyone is eligible for them. For example, in 2018, in IIT Madras, 255 out of 256 unreserved seats went to upper castes. So does that mean lower caste people are just not smart enough? In 2017, women made up just 8% of the total student strength of all IITs put together. Are women also not smart enough? Is there something in the genetics of upper caste men that makes them better at engineering? The secret to IIT's merit is the JEE, a competitive exam that is so hard that people seem to start studying for it sometime after they learn 1, 2, 3, but before they learn ABC. The test is seen as this grand, shining, merit-finding machine that unerringly looks through a number of students equal to the population of the capital of Australia and spits out only the most meritorious, the best and the brightest. The difference between rank 10,000 and rank 20,000 might be small, but we don't think about that. The JEE, as far as we're concerned, is fair. It does its job. And that's the JEE's real success. Not to actually find the best and brightest, but making us think that it did. And this is really dangerous. A meritocracy is supposed to be a world where anyone can succeed. It's a world where discrimination and barriers of entry are erased. It's a wonderful idea. But if a society thinks it's a meritocracy when it isn't, the idea of a meritocracy becomes something very dark and very twisted. Because fundamental to the idea of a meritocracy is that the successful deserve their success, and those who failed deserve their failure. No part of India is a meritocracy, but we've been trained to think some institutions like the IITs are. How did that happen? Let's get into some history. A history of reservations would be really interesting, but that's not what we're trying to do with this video. This is a history of how upper caste India conveniently forgot what reservations were really for. Let's go back to 1930. India is a deeply divided place with various groups fighting for their own interests. Upper caste Hindus, if you remember from the last video, are trying to claim that they speak for all of India. Politically, they cluster around the Congress, which is the face of the nationalist movement. But Muslims have successfully convinced the British that they don't speak for them. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar is trying to do the same for Dalits, arguing that Dalits have been oppressed by the Hindu caste order for centuries. But if the Dalits split away as well, this leaves the Congress as representing at best all the non-Dalit Hindus, which is roughly 50% of the country. M.K. Gandhi is horrified by this idea and essentially goes on a fast unto death, the first time he has ever threatened to do so, if Dalits continue their demands to split. This is a huge gesture, and it effectively forces Ambedkar to concede. The compromise that emerges, what we call the Pune Pact, can be seen as the birth of what we're seeing today. Because instead of separate electorates, the scheduled castes were going to get reservations. So when India became independent, the new constitution declared that the right to equality and non-discrimination was a fundamental right. But if everyone has to be treated equally before the law, what about the specific compromise of reservations for SCs and STs? Well, that's in the constitution too, but only as a directive principle. Directive principles are more like guidelines or suggestions. Governments can choose to not follow them, and no one can really force them to. To simplify a complicated story, with these two provisions, the caste system is officially abolished. The constitution now allows the government to create reservations for SCs and STs. But as Delhi University professor Satish Deshpande explains in his work, the constitution frames reservations like an exception, Like it's a concession that's being made. So essentially, Dalits being merged into the larger Hindu voter base was essential for the creation of modern India. But in return, all they got was this concession. And what was worse, from the moment these concessions were implemented, upper castes have constantly complained that they have been destroying merit. Okay, so then what does the constitution have to say about upper castes? Well, nothing really. Legally speaking, caste was now only a source of disadvantages. There is absolutely no recognition of how someone's caste could be a source of advantages. It's important to remember that at this point, upper castes have spent centuries accumulating enormous caste capital. This capital looks different for different communities. For Brahmins, it's a history of access to literacy, learning, and as a result, administrative power. For Vaishyas and Kshatriyas, it could mean control over land and wealth and trading networks. These pre-existing advantages mean that when the British established a westernized education system, upper castes are the first to benefit. When this education system becomes the basis of entry for all the new professions like law and the Indian civil service, again, upper castes are the first to benefit. And that advantage keeps being passed down from generation to generation. In this way, over time, caste capital is converted into modern currency, into qualifications, into professional achievements. And because the constitution does not officially recognize any of these caste advantages, upper castes could capture all of independent India's opportunities while insisting that they had done it through like fair and open competition. At the same time, in government jobs and in education, upper castes label themselves as general, while lower castes have to identify their specific caste. This is a situation that is fundamentally weird. It actively hides the truth. This becomes clear in 1990 when the government announces that it's going to implement the recommendations of the Mandal Commission. In addition to existing reservations for SC and STs, new quotas were going to be created in public sector jobs and in education for OBCs. OBCs or other backward classes hadn't faced untouchability like Dalits, but they were deemed as Shudras and occupied the lowest rung in the caste order and therefore faced oppression and exploitation as well. Now, half of all seats would be reserved, and there were huge protests, led mostly by upper castes who complained that this would destroy merit in India forever. And amidst all the chaos and violence, one particular fact suddenly gets drawn into the spotlight. Every caste group in India now had a reservation. Everyone, of course, except upper castes. But the moment you consider that fact, another thought comes right after it. Wait a minute, upper castes do have a category. The general category. They dominate it. The only reason lower castes need reservations is because the general category might as well be reserved for upper castes. According to the Mandal Commission, India's population was roughly 23% SC/ST and 56% OBC. So put together, they're roughly 80% of the whole country, and the recommended reservation for both together was roughly 50%. But this means that the remaining 50% of all jobs and university seats could continue to be dominated by upper castes, who are roughly only 18% of the whole country. This is the upper caste reservation that they don't want to talk about. When you think about that, the protests around the Mandal Commission suddenly appear in a very different light. They're not about upper caste fighting for the principles of fairness and merit. They're about upper caste fighting against the reduction in their quota of seats. This idea that the general category is an upper caste category is especially true in places like IIT. Harvard professor Ajanta Subramanian, who wrote a book about caste in IIT, details in the description below, has a story in her book about a student who is changing clothes in his hostel room and his roommate walks in. The roommate sees that this student doesn't have the thread that Brahmins wear, and the roommate asks him, "Doesn't your mother get upset when you don't wear it?" He doesn't even stop to wonder if this student is Brahmin or not. The student is actually OBC, but because he got in through the general category, everyone just assumes he's Brahmin. But that's not even the real end of the story. This student never reveals to his roommate that he's actually OBC. His roommate, possibly to this very day, still thinks that he's just from a liberal Brahmin family. Why doesn't he want to reveal his caste to other students? I mean, it might have something to do with the fact that caste discrimination at India's elite colleges is like rampant. Survey after survey after survey has shown how upper caste students discriminate and socially isolate students who joined through reservations. They constantly humiliate lower caste students, either by insulting their intelligence or making fun of their cultural background. Where does this entitlement of upper caste come from? Why do they think of themselves as general, as meritorious, as casteless? Upper castes in India seem to genuinely think that they are giving reservations to lower castes. But this idea that reservations are a concession that the casteless are giving to those who have caste is completely false. Reservations are not charity. But upper castes don't seem to understand this. Hence why they keep asking why reservations can't be based on economic criteria. If Dalits and other backward castes are actually poor, they say, then why can't reservations be for all poor people? Why does it have to be based on caste? But reservations are not a poverty alleviation program. There are different programs for that. The purpose of reservation is to increase representation for historically oppressed communities, to put them in positions of power in boardrooms, newsrooms, and courtrooms that they have been systematically kept out of for generations. If you understand caste as an actual source of power, if you understand it as oppression instead of some vague disadvantage, you can understand why people need reservation on the basis of caste. And once you realize that the question of creamy layer and what about rich OBCs, etc., goes away, if you're not doing charity, then you don't have to worry about whether the receiving person is poor or not. But if reservations aren't charity, what are they? Well, if you want another gross simplification, it might be more accurate to think of reservations as medicine, as a remedy for a sick society that has been plagued by the disease of caste discrimination for centuries. It is this sickness, the inequality of the caste system, that is responsible for holding India back. Consider the results of a 2009 study which found that when applying for a job, candidates with upper caste Hindu names were twice as likely to be called for interviews as those with Dalit names, even if they had the same education and experience. Now ask yourself, is it really reservations or is it actually caste discrimination that is destroying merit in India? The problem with caste is not just about having access to money or land, though that is a part of it. Caste is about being kept away from dignity. As horror stories from IIT show, achieving success does not mean the end of discrimination. When the lowest in the caste hierarchy rise up even a little, those above them rush to put them back in their place through violence, through humiliation, through atrocity. An example that is constantly in the news is how, for example, Dalit grooms get attacked just because they ride a horse to go to their wedding. When crimes like this happen, lower castes are not able to even get justice properly because positions of power in government and in courtrooms are still occupied by upper castes. The idea of reservation, the hope of reservation, is that once enough lower caste people are in positions of power, the effects of caste oppression can be countered. Reservations were never meant to single-handedly destroy the caste system, but they are a vital first step. But before we actually end, one important thing to note here. The thing about the myth of castelessness and the myth of merit is that if you say it enough times, it's easy to start believing it's true. Younger generations in upper caste families may genuinely believe that they are casteless, but all that means is that their parents did the conversion of caste capital into money and qualifications before them. In their lifetime, they might not be seeing any benefits from caste specifically, but for this generation at least, all those benefits that come from family are caste. It's just one step removed. These generations may have to remind themselves that there is no maths or engineering gene. There is nothing intrinsic about Brahmins that makes them better at intellectual pursuits. Being born a Rajput does not automatically make someone brave. Baniyas are not inherently good at business. If there is a distinguishable pattern of upper caste dominance in the general category of an institution like IIT, that is not a sign of merit. That is a sign that the caste system is still alive, that caste capital is still deciding the lives of people today. To read more about the facts and ideas in this video, check out the description for links to the academic texts that we used as sources.